Tyler Reddick finally gets that Michigan win. Corey LaJoie flips on his roof, and the playoff grid continues to heat up with only 2 races remaining in the regular season. Let's talk about NASCAR at Michigan. Hello everybody, welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host Alex Lambert, and let's talk about NASCAR in the Irish Hills of Michigan on a Monday afternoon, and we have a lot to break down. We have Kyle Larson involved in another accident. Corey LaJoie flips on his roof. The playoff grid continues to heat up, but Tyler Reddick is celebrating in victory lane right now. Let's break down everything in Michigan. The best way to do this, and the way I want to do this, is let's just go in order. Let's start from the beginning of the story, and let's go to the checkered flag, green to checkered, and let's talk about Sunday first, right? We had the first quarter of the race completed on a Sunday afternoon. That was yesterday before the rains came. And the only big thing that happened yesterday on Sunday that's really noticeable to the finish of the race is Denny Hamlin going for the lead. Looked to have one of the fastest cars in this race in those first 50 laps. Unfortunately, spins around trying to pass Bubba Wallace. He co-owns that team that Bubba Wallace drives for. He was trying to go for the lead, gets spun around, slides in the grass. We talked about it yesterday on my video. Is this going to cause damage? Can Denny Hamlin recover? Ultimately, he was able to get back up to 9th place. Not sure how much damage was on the car, if it sort of affected the way he drove, if he could have drove up to the win with that old car. We're not entirely sure, but that was certainly interesting. We then had that rain delay a quarter through the race on lap 52, ultimately resumed today at 11 o'clock in the morning, and things were going smoothly at the beginning. We had some strategy come into play. Kyle Busch trying to use a different strategy. Chase Elliott showing a lot of speed. And then we have Joey Logano loses a wheel at the end of stage 2, and that creates a restart with 5 laps remaining in stage 2, and this is when things get big. Kyle Larson gets sideways on coming out of turn 4 on that restart, causes a big stack up. Joey Logano involved, Bubba Wallace involved, Chris Buescher involved, multiple playoff drivers, Christopher Bell, Chase Briscoe, multiple drivers that are already in the playoffs and multiple drivers going for the win, multiple drivers that are trying to get into the playoffs. This was a big moment in this race. This took Bubba Wallace, that took a lot of points away from him because Bubba Wallace looked to have a really fast car. He could have potentially gone for the win. If not, could have gone for a top 5, at least a top 10. Unfortunately, Bubba Wallace does not get the finish he wants. He did get some stage points over the day, so that helps in that first stage. But really disappointing result for Bubba Wallace, now below the cut line. We'll obviously look at the points a little bit more as well, but Kyle Larson, another one of those strange looking wrecks where he's the only car to slide. I mean, there's been a few of those this year and, in the last 3 years in this next gen era. So certainly that's, an interesting point to bring up. Of course, a little bit later on in the race, we have Ryan Blaney did win stage 1, by the way, on Sunday. We had Kyle Busch win the second stage. It's the first stage he's won in quite some time. And then in the third stage, huge crash. Corey LaJoie, I want to talk about this for a minute. Gets upside down, has a little bit of a run in here with the 10 car of Noah Gragson. He gets sideways and immediately flips over. I mean, this looks like one of those toy cars you're throwing. It doesn't even look real. It's crazy how much air got underneath that car so quickly when it was sideways. The guys in the NBC booth gave NASCAR a little bit of a hard time about this, saying it's unacceptable for a car to get airborne like this and flip so easily. Obviously, Michigan's the fastest track in NASCAR. Cars going upwards of 205, closer to 210 miles an hour at times in the draft, so certainly the speeds are there, and that car did get airborne. So fortunately, Corey LaJoie was okay, so he was able to get out of the race car. Obviously, that was great to see. So the big concern, right, and I'm sure NASCAR is going to go in and look at every single aspect of this. They're going to look at the wind blowing down the straightaway, like Steve Letarte said. They're going to look at every aspect on this race car that caused it to get airborne. And the concern's not the barrel roll, right? I mean, that's not, we saw Ryan Preece barrel roll at Daytona last year. That's not really the big concern. Certainly it's not great. It's ugly looking, but those typically aren't the wrecks that cause injuries. Those are the harder hits. But the concern with cars flying in the air is other cars running into that car that's in the air. You go back to the Daytona 500 in 2020, or cars getting into the catch fence in front of grandstands or other personnel. That could obviously very dangerous for the driver. That makes the car come to a complete stop, and potential debris in the air. So the rolling itself really isn't the most dangerous part. The concern is when you have cars in the air, things can really go bad depending on where that car lands. And you go back to Daytona, another track, in the summer race in 2015, was the last time I can think of a car we had a really scary catch fence crash. So certainly trying to stay away from that. NASCAR is certainly going to go through and look at everything they can. But in the end, we had a couple of overtime restarts. Ross Chastain caught up in an accident, so that kind of helped Bubba Wallace out a little bit. That's who he was racing to get into the playoffs. He gets spun. To go to overtime, we had a Martin Truex Jr., kind of tags the wall. I mean, I don't like this caution. I guess I'm a little getting tired of the cautions coming out every week with 5 laps to go or under 10 laps to go. Sort of frustrating to me because I'm not a big fan of the overtimes myself. I feel like this didn't need to be a caution. I guess I could see where NASCAR's coming from, 200 miles an hour, car sideways. So I sort of understand it, but I still don't think that needed to be a caution. Didn't need to dispatch any safety vehicles. I don't think didn't look like there was any debris that needed to be picked up. So yeah, I'll just say that I don't think that should have been a yellow from what I see from the camera angles I saw of the crash. I mean, he got sideways a little bit there, but you don't want to prematurely hit the button like I feel like we've seen a few times this year. So let's go ahead. Let's talk about the finish of this race. The winner of this race, Tyler Reddick, on that final restart. He actually lost the lead on the first overtime restart to William Byron, but gained it back from William Byron on the second restart. So impressive move by Tyler Reddick. I thought that was an impressive drive by him. He was obviously the fastest race car, and he's had a few taken away from him in the past at Michigan. I just go back to last year where he was certainly in contention for the win, but unfortunately had a pit road issue, which kept him from winning that race last year. Michigan was also fast there in 2022. So Tyler Reddick's been fast at this racetrack for a few years. I'm not surprised at all that he was up front. I sort of was expecting him to be in contention for the win or get the win. The Toyota's 2311 was fast all day long. Unfortunately, his teammate Bubba Wallace got taken out early, but this is a big win for Tyler Reddick. You're getting closer to the playoffs, a little bit of momentum here, more playoff points. Tyler Reddick is now the regular season points leader. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Certainly a big deal for Tyler Reddick and another step in his career moving forward. Denny Hamlin said he wanted this guy. So far, he's got 2 wins just this season alone. Let's take a quick look at the top 10, right? Yeah, Tyler Reddick gets your win. William Byron, who lost on that overtime restart, lost the lead, unfortunately for him, gets a solid second-place finish. That's a good comeback for him. It's been a while since he's led laps. It's been a while since he's been in contention for wins. I talk about a summer slump for a few drivers. William Byron has been one of those drivers for sure. But back to second today, hopefully looking to gain some momentum and some speed heading into the playoffs. 2 races left. You have Ty Gibbs, great run for him, right? Finishing in the 3rd position, taking advantage of the overtime restarts, was able to finish in the 3rd position. That was a great recovery, right? Because he was not running well yesterday on Sunday when I showed the playoff grid. He was right on the bubble. Now he's 39 points above. Great day for Gibbs. Kyle Busch, nice run for him. They tried a fuel strategy move where they would take less fuel on the final pit stop and only 2 tires against everybody else's 4 tires and taking more fuel. So he was able to gain the lead and try to go for the win. But unfortunately, those new tires and really Tyler Reddick, Byron, even Chase Elliott were just faster than Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch said in his post-race interview, feels like he had about an 7th, 8th place race car. Took it into 4th position. Solid day for RCR, capitalizing on some finishes, which is something we haven't seen in a while. 12th last week. 4th this week. That 2-week break was an essential for RCR. They've been showing a little bit more speed lately, so we'll see what they can do in these next 2 races. Brad Keselowski, 5th, nice run today. Obviously, he's looking to get the Michigan hometown guy, looking to get his first win in Michigan. I think I've heard him say that this would be as big as the Daytona 500 if he was able to do it for him, just because he's from the Michigan area. It's a big race anyway. Certainly, Brad Keselowski getting closer. 5th place finish today, showing a lot of speed in that RFK Ford. And how many times do I say this happens? The 2 RFK Fords, 5 and 6 together every week, it seems like they are right there on par, same amount of speed, close finishes. Chris Buescher right behind him in 6th place, last year's Michigan winner. So great run for Chris Buescher in the 6th car as well, who was recovering from being in that crash early on in the race. Zane Smith, what a great run for him. 71 car for Spire Motorsports, has not had a good season at all. Just a rookie season, right? He's actually, has a contract with Trackhouse, finished 2nd at Nashville, and he even said in his post-race interview, that's when he feels like things change. Because sometimes all it takes is a little bit of, fluky situation like Nashville to get him to finish in the 2nd position, give him some momentum, and they can take it and run with it. Great 7th place finish today. That is absolutely phenomenal. 2 Spire Motorsports cars in the top 10. Daniel Suarez 8th. That's a nice run for him. Denny Hamlin, like I said, recovered from the spin yesterday. Finished in 9th. Carson Osavar, that other Spire Motorsports driver. That's 2 top 10s in a row for the rookie Carson Osavar. Very impressive season for him as well. I know he hasn't come close to winning. He's not going to make the playoffs, but still an impressive first season, rookie season for Carson Osavar in what I would say, I know they're spending a lot of money, but it's still not top-tier equipment. So that's the top 10. Let's go through the point standings now. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Here are the regular season points. So the drivers in yellow have a win locked into the playoffs. Martrex Jr., Ty Gibbs are the only ones in the top 10 that don't have wins. And you see on the left side, I'll try to break down what I'm showing here. What I've created is the playoff points. So first place gets 15 bonus points per round of the playoffs. That equals 45 if you make it to every round. Then you have 10 for second, 8 for third, all the way down to 1, which currently would go to these drivers, right? So that's their playoff points if they finish in that position, plus the playoff points they get from stages and wins. So that's what I like about this system. It does reward, running good all season long. It's not just winning, you're in and you're done. No, you got to finish good in the points. You got to get more wins. You got to get stage wins to be at an advantage in a higher seed when the postseason starts. Unfortunately, Kyle Larson, who wrecked earlier today, like I said, did not get many points today. I believe he got 4 points on the day, now 32 points out of the lead. He was leading the regular season going into this race. Now Tyler Reddick, today's winner, is leading that 23-11. Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin's team is leading the NASCAR regular season points right now with 2 races to go in the regular season. That's incredible. Chase Elliott obviously been very consistent all year in second. Denny Hamlin trying to catch up at 28 points back. But really with this move, I don't see a situation where Larson or Hamlin could catch him. Certainly we'll have to see. We'll have to keep watching. But it's definitely closer between Reddick and Elliott right now. Disastrous day for Kyle Larson if he wanted to win that. Certainly looking back at today and a few other wrecks. And then, of course, obviously missing the Coke 600, which pays a lot of points. Here's the playoff grid, right? We still have our 12 different winners. Austin Dillon pending. He's got to win. Going to appeal Wednesday. Don't see it getting appealed. I don't think that will happen. So I'm going to leave Austin Dillon completely off of the playoff grid for now. Martrex Jr., 77 points in. Look, I know he keeps getting up in trouble. I know it's just been a rough summer for him, no doubt. Hard year for Martrex Jr. He said it himself. I still think he's guaranteed in. If he doesn't make it, you can call me wrong, but he's 77 in. I think after Daytona next week, whoever wins the race, whatever the points show, I think we can then, after Daytona, put Martrex Jr. in gold, even if he doesn't have a win, and he's in the playoffs. So we'll have to see what happens. Certainly it should be fun to watch. Ty Gibbs with that third place finish today. That was great. 39 points above now. Chris Buescher, 16 points above with that sixth place finish. Great run for him recovering from the crash. Ross Chastain wrecked on that overtime restart. That was disastrous. He went below the cut line, but able to gain a couple of spots. Now 1 point above Bubba Wallace. And then, unfortunately for Bubba Wallace, who was going to have a great points day, looked to be had trouble early in that race in that Kyle Larson wreck. So like I said, that Kyle Larson wreck really messed with the point standings today and put Bubba Wallace 1 below. Obviously Busch, Briscoe, Todd Gilliland, anybody else below that cut line looking for a win at Daytona or the Southern 500. And once again, if you're one of these 4 drivers I've been talking about from 14th to 17th, you want to be 15th on the grid because Daytona can always produce a surprise winner. Southern 500 could produce a surprise winner too. I think it's more unlikely. Usually top talented drivers win that because it's probably the hardest track in NASCAR. But you look at guys like Eric Jones, a few other, Kyle Busch, they could go out there and win that race. A few other talented guys. Chase Briscoe, who's won there in the Xfinity Series as well. Very talented driver. You look at drivers like that could sneak up and win that Southern 500 too. But Daytona next week, Saturday night, is really what I think the big move is that could shake the playoff grid up. You get another winner, all of a sudden 16th place on the grid is below the cut line in 17th. So that's why you want to be 15th on that playoff grid between those 4 drivers, not including Truex. I'm going to put him in. I still think he's guaranteed in. But that's it. It's really all there is to talk about after what I thought was a great race. Unfortunately, I did miss the initial resumption, started class today, but I thought it was a great race. I thought it was exciting, sort of an underrated track right now. Maybe Michigan, the high speeds is obviously great. More high-speed racing next week at Daytona on Saturday night. Tune in to Dirty Air for that after Saturday night under the lights at Daytona. But that's it. All there's to talk about. And, of course, about Kyle Busch. Back in the top 5, 4th place finish. Let's get rowdy.